sudden.
Oh, yes.
Because your face looks familiar to me.
And they do that at the airlines too, at the station. It is simple.
Oh, I didn't see you. It's nice to see you again.
It's good to see Turkish Airlines again. Best airline. I flew over to Turkey this past spring, and I was astounded at the service and the care that they take. So, and this is not an endorsement or a commercial. Right? My editors would say, I'm not endorsing anything. Actually, I'm just speaking for myself. And that became apparent just over the weekend when our newspaper endorsed President Barack Obama. I don't take any credit for that whatsoever. But true to form at the newspaper, our newspaper has never once suggested anything, any topic or slant for anything that I write, and I wasn't about to tell them who to endorse. Although I'm reminded now, when I look at it, I see one president, the president, or let's say the Republican. Now he's a conservative for the most recent several months, but before that he was a big government Republican. And the other, hello, sir, welcome. And the other is a big government Democrat, right? So I was thinking, what would my grandfathers say back in Greece? And they would probably say, 2 horns, same goat. Right? But we fictionalize, or we're desperate in America right now to break up into tribes, to have the Republicans and the Democrats, and we're all shunted back into our different groups. It's all done very smoothly with symbols and rhetoric by masters. And then we have people calling up on talk show. I'm doing a talk show now on WLS in the mornings before I write the column, in the middle of doing the interviews. And they say, I can tell from the language, people want to be in these tribes. They just want it. It gives them a feeling of comfort. However, as I think this audience understands, maybe it's not so simple, and that maybe arguments and agreements are not so easy. The largest thing in the federal sphere right now, we have an election coming up Tuesday. We have a storm called Sandy. Sandy is the storm. Is it with an I or a Y?
Why?
I'm sorry. I was a sailor. I was a sailor in the Greek Merchant Marine years before I became a journalist. I was a butcher, then a sailor, journalist. I don't know how that prepared me. But I'm still not used to having storms named after women, and I don't mean any disrespect by this. There's another storm, and it's called Benghazi. And it's the storm that President Obama and his people are trying to keep at arm's length. And they're trying to kick the can down the road past Tuesday. I'm sure all of you study and watch international affairs very carefully, more carefully than do I. What I noticed very interesting was last week there were reports of the emails that came out where the personnel were on the ground asking for help. And it said they were denied 3 times for help. And the administration came out and sent Leon Panetta out, and Leon Panetta said something like, we couldn't do anything because we didn't have any information, whatever the political line was at the time. And then Friday afternoon, a statement from the Central Intelligence Agency, from the spokesman, saying we never denied anyone anything. That's pretty rare, I think, for different aspects of the government to speak differently in times of crisis. And maybe after Wednesday, the American media will figure out that there might be a story there. In the meantime, it seems that we're not telling a story. I'm not a foreign policy expert. You are foreign policy experts, I would assume. Me, my subject is mostly local. But in local or foreign affairs, there's only, who said it best? In politics, there are no permanent enemies, no permanent friends, only permanent interests. And so Benghazi, I think, would have to be considered in light of this tribal breakup that we have right now, in light of what's going on in the Middle East, perceptions about Barack Obama in some parts of the Middle East and others. And all these things will be, I assume, dealt with sometime after November, Tuesday, November. My main interest, or the one I write about mostly, is local politics, Illinois politics, crooked politics, vulgar, nasty, brutish, and short. But also, I think, a politics that understands that power will be served. So what we have here now is, I've been goofing around with this slogan, this saying I call Illinois Madaganistan, after the chief warlord of our province, the windswept province that was once green and fertile.
He was here on his birthday in the audience.
Oh, he came here?
Yes.
Oh, then how come
his
I
birthday.
wasn't here with him to sit down
He
with
wasn't
him?
speaking, but he was here on his birthday
Is-
because I brought a
did
friend of
he-
mine who's talking.
Is anyone in the audience have to write a cable back to Mike after I'm done? If so, I'll speak to you privately. But I'm just teasing about the cable thing. But Mr. Madigan has run the state 30 years with great power and success, except that right now we are in debt up to our eyeballs, borrowing more money, at least $85 billion in unfunded pension liabilities, which means really it's probably about $150 billion. At the end of the election, after this election, and after Thanksgiving, the politicians will gather in what's called a lame duck session and then hit us with a series of tax increases and casino gambling. And no real changes will be made. There won't be any changes. And in Illinois, I don't know how could there be. There's no real political leadership from the Republican Party. The Republican Party, in effect, is made up of, in a great part, downtown landowners who own maybe this building or other buildings around here. And they go to Mike Madigan and have their taxes reduced. And then he goes to Springfield and raises them on the rest of us. I don't know what you'd call that. I'd wait for a grand jury to make a determination because I can't. But it just seems to be the kind of thing that expresses or explains what our politics really are. So for all the tribal discussions and yelling back and forth, Democrat, Republican, what I see are big, wealthy men subsidizing the Democratic machine and the people down below screaming at each other. And someday they're going to figure it out. And when they do, usually it's bad. It's usually bad. I don't think we're going to have a guillotine party here in the state of Illinois, but eventually people kind of figure it out. Locally also, we also have our mayor, Rahm Emanuel, and I'm sure you've met him. Have you all met Mayor Emanuel? He's a very interesting fellow, very bright, smart. He came to the Tribune the other day for the editorial board session when he came out with his budget. And he said, after the budget was over, after he gave his spiel, he came up to me and said, "How did I do?" in the hallway. And I said, "Ron, Father, You did fine. He said, no, really, how did I do? I said, well, you have no money. There's no money left. The last guy, I forgot his name, whoever that was, spent all the money. There's no money left. And he said, I bleeping know that. But how did I do? I said, you did fine. Then he said, and surprised me, he said, John, I have to see it. And I said, what? He said, I have to go to your office. I have to see it. Can I see it? I said, do you really want to see it?
Oh, the picture.
Yes, the picture. The picture of the Rom father as Michael, what's his name, Pacino, Michael Corleone. And he's sitting there, the portrait's like this. It's right behind my desk. So when I type, I know he's always looking at me. When I got the portrait, someone sent it to me, I thought, who would send me such a thing? So I took the whole thing to a security analyst and had them check the frame. You never know, right? I'm Greek. I understand about Trojan horses. I know about these gifts and what could these be. So the man from who did the security was from Odessa, and he kept assuring me that he knows all about security, but he wasn't in the KGB. He kept talking like I'm not asking you. Enough. Stop with the fiction. I'm not KGB. I was in Odessa, but I'm not. But I know everything about security and equipment and everything. I'm like, okay, fine. So anyway, the mayor saw it, and he just loved the Rom father, and said, "Can I have?" I said, "I have a copy for you." The artist gave me a copy, and he said, "Well, can I have it?" And I said, "Of course you can. I would love to give it to you." But I didn't say when, because I've been covering politics now for 25 years. So I know that you don't say right away, tomorrow I'll bring it. I want to hear what he's going to bring now. What are you bringing now? A couple interviews, maybe 6 front-page stories, major revelations. I'd say I'll bring it to him after the election. I would never, that's just a joke for the camera, okay? I would never play the Chicago way with the news. We have enough politicians to do that. And still, with all the corruption, all the brutality, tribalism, vulgarity, this is a great city and a great state. I
Never
can't
know it from your columns.
But I can't, well, because I'm not the press agent. They have many people who can serve as press agent, and they do. My job is not to be the press agent of the politicians. And as a matter of fact, I enjoy not. Because if you're a press agent for one, then you have to be, the other guy's going to say, why don't you write about my grandchildren and what they did in college? And then I have to write about the next guy and the next guy. And it gets rather boring. So I'm free to, right now, write what I want. The Tribune endorsed Obama. And they never asked me how to write my column. I never told them about editorials. So I thought, what am I going to write? Well, I thought I'd write something not political at all for Sunday. So I don't know if you saw it, but I wrote about movies. And I endorsed, they endorsed Obama and went on and on. I endorsed my favorite political movie, Being There. Has anyone seen it? Jerzy Kaczynski? It's about a rather simple fellow of absolutely no accomplishments, who is the embodiment, or he's the empty vessel for, empty vessel for everyone's hopes and dreams. So if someone sees him, they immediately project all the good things that they want into him. And this talent becomes apparent to very powerful men who make sure that he becomes president of the United States. And some say that's fiction, and I would probably agree. Now the other guy, I haven't figured out a movie for Mr. Romney, although I am waiting for the Etch-a-Sketch to come out, if he's elected. If he's elected, he will shake it over his head, and all that stuff he said about budgets and debt and deficit, I think, will be forgotten. And we'll go on our path again, borrowing and spending, borrowing and spending. If he wins Virginia, we'll have to spend $2 trillion for a Navy. I think that's the pact that's implied in his campaign. So, I hope that you have questions of me, because I would like to answer them as honestly as possible with people I don't know sitting in front of me and a camera on me. But I hope you do have questions, because I know we have a beautiful lunch prepared, and I would like to be able to talk to each and every one of you who wants to do that individually. I think that this is a great forum. The Niagara Foundation, I find to be reassuring at a time of great change in the Middle East and here and everywhere. And although I know that all of us, we may have differences, I like dialogue. I like dialogue a lot better than I like violence. The only time for violence is on the soccer field with slide tackles. So if you do have questions, I would hope that you would ask them.
How about Trump's movie for the other guy?
Yeah, what's Trump, what movie would that be?
Where he bought the golf course or something in Scotland or?
Is that the guy who wanted fishing in Iran or something, that movie? The fishing movie?
Trump, it just came out.
Oh, Donald Trump has a
He bought a
movie?
golf course, he took a village.
I think Donald Trump should be in a movie about a man with a top hat. And like, when I was a little boy, we never took vacations. My father was working too hard. But we did take 2 days once to go to Springfield to see the state fair. And when we went to Springfield, the state fair in those days had tents. It was like a carnival. And you'd walk up and you'd see someone say like, come on in here and see. And they have a cane and a hat and they're trying to get you inside. And I would put Trump as one of those people. Come on, let's come on up here and see, right? Because he seems like like I wrote last week, a carnival barker. It's kind of unsettling to see Americans put so much stock in someone who would speak that way. And the other woman, what's her name, his counterpart, Gloria Allred, another one. Right? I mean, one's going to come with something against Obama, the other's going to come with something against Romney. It's rather cheap. I would much rather them talk about Benghazi, which I understand if I were a Democrat, I wouldn't want that to be spoken of. But as an American, I think it should be. Yes, sir.
Do you have an idea why they came out with the film story from the administration?
Excuse me, John, not to interrupt, but could you please introduce yourself
yes.
before you ask the question to the audience?
Sure. My name is Tim Sigmund, visiting from New York City. I work for a nonprofit there. And my question is, why did the administration come out with this story about the film as the reason for the attack in Benghazi rather than the information that came to them through the emails?
Do I have any real information? Can I open David Axelrod? Oh, why would David Axelrod have anything to do with this? I mean, would I open the mind of our government? And I don't have any special insights there, only my view, right? Which is like your view. I mean, it's rather uninformed. I'm here. I'm not sitting in the Situation Room, right? What I think it's rather odd. If you look at the president's speech going back to Cairo, which his enemies have called the apology tour, and which others have talked about in terms of, a realistic assessment that there are, so many Muslims in the world and we shouldn't fight with everyone. You put that in the context of the video, it kind of fits. To put the most positive spin on it. I find that I don't like to put, as my friend here informed me, I really don't like to put positive spin on things. I like to put other kinds of spin. And what I would say is that, look, is President Obama a bad man? Absolutely not. I think he's a good man. I do. I think I've known him for quite some time. We don't chat anymore since I started writing about opium smoking and so on, because that's what they smoke. That's what the media and the president's people pass out. I don't think he's a bad man. I think that we were, in a way, a bad people to elect an inexperienced man like this.
Well, he had 3 other candidates running, but they had sex scandals or something.
This is Chicago. Things happen. What can I tell you? So, what I mean by that is not to criticize our president, but to say that if I were, look at his life. He's a man who lived an unaccomplished life. He basically was trying to get someplace politically. And I don't mean this to be, please don't go that right-wing kook again with the, I'm talking on his behalf in a way. What the analysts, and those of you who analyze politics in America, what they seem to miss is that here's a man who climbed up the ladder politically. He came to the excuse me. We know how he was born. You know where he was found, don't you?
Yes.
You know the real story of Obama's birth? You want it? Okay, off the record. Obama was found in a reed basket, floating in the Chicago River.
I have that column.
You do? Okay, yes, I've used it several times and people say, stop enough. And the Daily Women picked him up and raised him to the time of miracles. And the one miracle that was a great miracle was that he was a reformer with Tony Rezko sitting on his, in his arm. But even so, let's not be children, okay? I mean, that's for a joke, but I mean, seriously, okay? Obama climbed up the political ladder and never challenged authority. The dynamic, the public discussion was when you strip away the messianic feeding the thousands of people with the McDonald's cheeseburgers and the 2 fishes and so on, you strip it away, the man never challenged authority. He never took a stand that would threaten his position. He went into one campaign with Bobby Rush. Anybody know Bob? I've known Bob for a long time. And Bob just slapped him and said, "You're not black enough," and backed him down. And then Obama smartened up, because the analysts are all wrong when they think that Bob Rush is some sort of independent Democrat. They think he's like some liberal left-wing Democrat. That's ridiculous. Bob Rush is a creature of City Hall for the last 20 years. So he played ball. He decided, I'm going to play ball. And that's what he did. And playing ball got him to the White House. He wrote 2 biographies before he was 50.